Day 2017 will commence shortly. The audience is requested to turn off their cell phones, pagers, etc. Upon the entry of the President of the State of Israel, the Prime Minister, the Speaker of the Knesset, and the Deputy Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the audience will be requested to rise until after the lighting of the memorial torch. At the end of the ceremony, you are requested to leave your headsets and devices on the chairs.
יעבור לנוח, לעמוד נוח.
Distinguished audience, the President of the State of Israel and his wife, the Prime Minister and his wife, Speaker of the Knesset, and the Deputy Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and his wife, accompanied by the Chairperson of the Yad Vashem Council and the Chairperson of the Yad Vashem Directorate. The audience is requested to rise. Your Honor, President of the State of Israel, Prime Minister and his wife, Speaker of the Knesset, Deputy Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and his wife, Honorary Chief Rabbis of Israel, Chairperson of Yad Vashem Council, Chairperson of Yad Vashem Directorate, Director of the Center of Organizations of Holocaust Survivors in Israel, Holocaust Survivors in Israel and overseas, members of the families of the righteous among the nations, Chancellor of Austria and his wife, distinguished audience, one and all. To mark the opening of the Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Day, we shall lower the national flag to half-mast. To kindle the memorial torch, I'm honored to invite the Chairperson of Yad Vashem Directorate of Ner Shalev. Please be seated. Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Remembrance Day 2017 bears the title Restoring Their Identities, the Fate of the Individual During the Holocaust. In the picture before you, you can see Jewish people from Hungary upon their arrival to the extermination camp Auschwitz-Birkenau in May 1944. On the 19th of August 1942, the liquidation of the Jews remaining in the ghetto Gofel started. Being somberly aware of their approaching death, the Jews wrote on the walls of the synagogue the very last words. A woman wrote, "Farewell be thou, my beautiful world, in this last hour of my life. Your friend, Hannah Avrech." From the witness page of Hannah, it turns out that she was a teacher. She married Joseph and was the mother of 2 girls. An archival folder exposes information about the last moments of her husband, who, while being executed, cried out to the German commander that even if they succeed in killing all the Jews, the Germany's fall is bound to happen. The last words of Hannah, the witness page, and their archival sources bring back to life the image of 2 out of tens of thousands of Jews that the Nazi Germans wished to eliminate and erase their memory. The Jews of the city of Kovel, who engraved their names and their wills on the walls of the synagogue, operate against the German ploy to exterminate the Jewish people and wish to be remembered. Their will has become true upon the establishment of Yad Vashem and the project of registering the names of millions of Jews exterminated in the Holocaust. Perusing those witness pages brings back to life their memory and their faces. Every victim was an entire world. Every person carried within him the story of his past, the heritage of his congregation, the spirit of his family, and his severed future. Revealing the identity of those murdered reveals the history of the Holocaust from a human personal perspective. President of the State of Israel, Mr. Reuven Ruby Rivlin, please. Holocaust survivors, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife Sarah, Speaker of the Knesset Yuli Edelstein, Deputy Chief Justice of the Supreme Court Justice Eliakim Rubinstein and his wife, Chief Rabbis of Israel, Chancellor of Austria and his wife, Chairperson of the Opposition Itzhak Buzi Herzog and his wife Michal, Minister of Defense Victor Lieberman, Ministers, members of Knesset, Commissioner of Police Roni Al-Sheikh, Deputy Chief of the General Staff Major General Yair Golan, Mayor of Jerusalem Nir Barkat and his wife Beverly, Chairperson of the Yad Vashem Directorate of Ner Sholat, Esai Lau, distinguished audience, one and all. My brothers and sisters, Holocaust survivors, the first candle of Hanukkah, 1943. The inmates' barracks in Bergen-Belsen. The Rabbi of Lajov, Rabbi Israel Shapira, blesses over the candles. His voice echoes in the barracks. He blesses the first and the second blessing, and then continues and blesses the third when a large crowd of Jews joins him in saying, Shehechayanu v'kiyimanu v'hegi'anu lazman hazeh. Blessed we are that you have brought us thus far. I am standing here tonight in this dreadful evening in Jerusalem, the rebuilt capital of the State of Israel. And on behalf of our brethren, our brothers and sisters, the victims of the Holocaust and its survivors who struggled over their existence, their Jewishness, and their human image, on their behalf I say, blessed be thou for sustaining us and bringing us to this day. Am Israel Chai, the people of Israel still lives. 72 years have passed since the flames of that inferno of Auschwitz was put out. The more time passes, and the fewer the witnesses of that atrocity survive, the older the State of Israel becomes, so our need becomes stronger. Our need to explore our relationship to the Holocaust and its memory. Distinguished audience, in the last few decades, there are two distinct approaches that become clearer and clearer in the way by which the Israeli society remembers the Holocaust and learns its lessons. One deals only with the aspects and the universal lessons of the Holocaust, and the other is the approach that sees the Holocaust as a prism through which we see the world. The first universal approach denies the singularity of the Holocaust as a historic event that is unlike any other event, an event that happened to us, members of the Jewish people. According to this approach, the Holocaust is a specific case of genocide, of racism. And such cases have happened and perhaps will happen again in human history. In the case of the Holocaust, they will say this terrible, hideous genocide hurt the Jewish people. This is an extremely dangerous phenomenon. It dwarfs the Holocaust. It distorts history. It denies the systematic elimination plan that was aimed only toward the Jewish people. It denies anti-Semitism as a malignant disease of thousands of years. It denies the right and the obligation of the Jewish people to have its own history and to have its own country. The Holocaust has always been an extermination plan that was planned and executed against the Jewish people. The gas chambers were not built as a crime against humanity. They were built with one aim, and that was to eliminate the Jewish people and to exterminate only the Jewish people. There was no other such historic phenomenon, an extermination that is detached from conflict, from territorial controversies, or struggle over domination. This ominous endeavor that huddled groups from different parts of the world, different continents, Jewish people who could not speak each other's languages, believers and heretics, assimilated Jews and Orthodox Jews, with one aim only, to exterminate them and their offsprings and to erase them from the face of the earth. The Holocaust did not happen in an ancient world, and it didn't take place such a long time ago. It took place in the heart of Europe, in the heart of the Enlightenment, in the heart of Germany, of Kant, the father of modern ethics, in the heart of France, France of civil and human declaration of rights. It was there, yes, there, that the worst atrocities that was aimed at us, members of the Jewish people, took place. A solely universal approach would not only be a historic mistake, but also an educational danger because of the message that it would convey to future generations. Studying the Holocaust has to do with preoccupation with fundamental questions that pertain to the depth of Jewish identity. We cannot suffice with this simplistic place of objecting to genocide, whatever that genocide is. It is quite clearly that the Holocaust has universal messages and lessons, but denying the singularity of the Holocaust of the Jewish people would be a historic, national, and educational mistake. On the other hand, the other approach, the one that turns the Holocaust into a prism through which we look at the world, here, the Holocaust and the prevention of the next Holocaust are the only important thing. Here, I had a disagreement with my teacher and mentor, Menachem Begin of blessed memory. On the eve of the entry of the IDF to Lebanon in June of 1982, Begin said, and I quote, "The alternative to not allowing the IDF to entering Lebanon is another Treblinka, and we decided that there won't be another Treblinka," end of quote. This is what Menachem Begin said. According to this approach, Israel's raison d'etre is the prevention of the next Holocaust. Every threat is an existential threat. Every leader who hates Israel is another Hitler. According to this approach, the essence of the collective Jewish identity is avoiding massacre with shared measures. And the world is divided in two. The righteous among the nations on the one side and Nazi anti-Semites on another. And in any case, any criticism leveled at the State of Israel is seen as anti-Semitism. This approach is also mistaken and is no less dangerous to us as a nation and a people, and no less dangerous is it to the memory of the Holocaust. No doubt there were other historic junctions since the Holocaust in which we felt the horror and the fear of the destruction of the Third Temple, and definitely the State of Israel can find itself facing an existential threat any time. But we do have a country, we do have an army. This approach is dangerous both inwardly and also outwardly. Internally, it blurs the Jewish rich existence that prevailed before the Holocaust. However, the Jewish people was not born in Auschwitz. It wasn't fear that kept us alive for thousands of years in exile, but rather the spiritual wealth, the shared creativity and cultural assets. Outwardly, this approach would make it difficult for us to develop relations with nations of the world and those who criticize us from a confident and ready for discourse place. We should always ask ourselves if, when we are constantly busy in the prevention of the Holocaust, can we really contend optimally with the different challenges that we face? And there are many such challenges. The Holocaust is forever etched in our flesh. Everyone, every single one of us has a number tattooed on their arm. And still, the Holocaust is not the prism through which we want to examine our past as well as our future. Distinguished audience, dear ladies and gentlemen, these two approaches has existed in the Israeli society and the Jewish people for a long time. But there is also a third approach that is confident yet alert. The Jewish people survived the Holocaust and has been privileged to see its revival. We will never, ever forget neither this approach nor the other. But this third approach, the memory of the Holocaust and its lessons, positions itself on three pillars. The first is that we should always protect ourselves with our own hands. The second one is the shared Jewish destiny. And the third one is, beloved is man, since he is created in the image of God. First, we will always defend ourselves with our own hands. The State of Israel is no compensation for the Holocaust, but the Holocaust dictates that we take our fate into our own hands. The Jewish people has the right and the obligation to have its own defensive force, to have its own national independence and sovereignty here in our historic homeland. Second, this shared Jewish destiny. All of us, members of the Jewish people, have a shared history and future. We should always remember our brethren in the diaspora and our commitment and obligation for their safety and well-being. Especially this year, anti-Semitism demands that we demonstrate even more loyalty to our brothers in the diaspora. They are expressly asking that we stand at their side at this time as well. And number three, beloved is man since he is created in the image of God. This is the Jewish truth. It is the human truth, the most fundamental one. Beloved is man, every man who is created in the image of God. It is a sacred obligation that the Jewish people cannot and does not want to shirk. We therefore cannot remain silent when facing the atrocities that are perpetrated in distant places, and definitely not the ones that take place just on the other side of the fence. Maintaining our human image is the great feat of heroism bequeathed to us by the victims of the Holocaust and by you, the survivors of the Holocaust, in the deeds that were made for others, in the cold, in the hungers, in the cattle cars, in the ovens and the ghettos. Dear friends, we will always defend ourselves with our own hands. This shared Jewish destiny and the fact that we are beloved, the man is the one who is created in the image of God, are all three lessons that we should recite and teach our sons and daughters forever. Distinguished audience, on the 27th of January, 1945, the gates of hell were wide open. The sun shone above the Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp after 5 years of darkness. A long line of people that were liberated by the Red Army left the Valley of Death. Among them was young Papicek. He was the youngest boy on Block 10, the block of the twins and the dwarves of that monster, the Archangel of Death, Yosef Mengele, the youngest survivor who left Auschwitz alive. Papicek spent 8 months in Auschwitz. On his tiny arm, the Nazi tattooed a number, A2459. When the gates of the camp were opened, Papicek did not know where to go. His mother, his father, his eldest sister, and his twin sister were all exterminated. Papicek remained alone. He was 4 years and 8 months old. Can you imagine? A preschool child, a nursery child. He lied on the snow and fell asleep. A Jew who passed by adopted him. He was the one who gave him his name, Peter Grinfeld. A long time passed before Papicek discovered his real identity, Peter Joseph Grinfeld Kleinman. Papicek got married and had children and grandchildren. He immigrated to Israel and became a man of testimony. He devoted his life to bequeathing this memory to future generations. That was his revenge. That was his vision. Last month, Papicek passed away. His daughter, Ziva, is here with us tonight. The young child from Auschwitz-Birkenau passed away. He used to end his testimony with the following words: I immigrated to Israel, and from here I will never ever be lost again. On his behalf and on your behalf, I would like to end as well by saying we have returned to our land and we shall never ever be lost again. May the memory of our brothers and sisters be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Amen. Prime Minister of the State of Israel, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. President of the State of Israel, Reuven Rivlin, and his wife Nechama, I will follow your advice and I will say, distinguished audience, first and foremost, our beloved Holocaust survivors, survivors who came out of the inferno, who rose from the ashes and shine like torches. Last week, a very profound study was published that is based on the archive of the Nazi crimes in the United Nations. According to this study, the Allies knew about the mass extermination of Jews already in 1942. It is a striking fact, because so far we used to think that the time in which the understanding of the scope of the Holocaust by the Allies was 2 years later. I know the UN archive because when I arrived there as the Israeli ambassador in 1984, I demanded and I received the consent to my request to open this archive that was blocked until then. Following this new study, a terrible, hideous meaning becomes apparent. Had the superpowers in 1942 operated against the extermination camps in 1942, and all that was necessary was a recurrent bombardment of those camps, had they operated back then against the extermination camp, they could have saved 4 million Jews and millions of additional human beings. The superpowers knew, and they did nothing about the situation. While such atrocities were perpetrated against the Jews, when our brothers and sisters were sent to the gas chambers, when the sister of Estelle Barone, representative of the survivors who will speak to us tonight, when her sister was torn off her hand by Mengele in Auschwitz, the superpowers knew and did nothing about the situation. Distinguished audience, what brought about this singular, inconceivable catastrophe that befell our nation is a combination of three things. It is abysmal hatred of Jews, the indifference of the world when faced with such atrocities, and the weakness of our people, this terrible weakness of our people in exile. Has hatred disappeared? No, it has not. And if we are to judge according to our 1,000 years of history of anti-Semitism, it would be naivete to think that it would disappear in the foreseeable future. Beside the anti-Semitism that reveals itself again in the West, there breaks out a profound hatred from the East, anti-Semitism of radical Islam, with its two factions led by Iran and ISIS, striving to eliminate us out there in the open. The hatred of Jews is directed now toward the state of the Jews. Anti-Semitism, this old new anti-Semitism, is prevalent among circles in the West and is prevalent in the UN agencies. Hypocrisy cries out to the heavens. And when it comes to the indifference of the world, has anything changed here? Well, here too we have to admit that the answer lies mostly in the fact that it is actually a negative answer, even though since World War II, there has not been another tragedy that resembles the scope of the Holocaust in any way, but there are many cases in which the world stands on the side and does not prevent genocide and does not prevent mass murder. It can be Biafra or Cambodia or Rwanda or Sudan. And yes, in Syria too. And still, within that darkness, there are a few spots of light. One of them has only recently happened, and it is the clear response of President Trump concerning the massacre of the Syrian children. We are not indifferent to the suffering of the Syrians. We have a field hospital right next to the fence that has Israeli doctors, Jewish, Druze, Arab doctors who serve the Syrian population. Israel is treating those patients in this hospital and in other Israeli hospitals and has been treating thousands of Syrians, including children, who were hurt by this cruel war. But in general, the simple truth is this. In our world, the existence of the weak is not guaranteed. When faced with murderous countries and movements, the chances of its survival are not that great. The mighty survives. The weak ones fade away. Our people has experienced it during the Holocaust, and the lesson should always be seen before us at any time. And the lesson is that we have to be able to defend ourselves on our own against any threat, against any enemy. The ones who wish to do us harm risk the very same harm that should happen to them. It is not a provocation, it's not an exaggeration. It is the only way to truly secure our very future. And we are definitely capable of doing that. And I'm saying this with my heated emotions, because this lesson guides me and directs me day in and day out. It is the superior goal, not the exclusive one, but the superior and first role of every prime minister in the State of Israel. And I'm saying this in memory of the deceased, and I'm saying this on your behalf, members of the Jewish people, citizens of the State of Israel, and amongst them you, Holocaust survivors who are so dear to our heart. Because all of us, the generations who built the country and the ones who continue to build it, have actually introduced the biggest change in the human destiny. We have replaced our weakness. We have replaced our weakness with strength. From a helpless people, we have turned into a robust nation. From a defenseless nation, we have turned into a powerful country that can defend itself with one of the strongest armies. We nurture our military intelligence, technological power. We take great pride in our open, thriving, and moral democracy of ours, which represents and generates impressive achievements in economy, science, culture, in every field. These things give us hope and give us resilience, because when faced with the ongoing anti-Semitism, I am telling you, citizens of the State of Israel, entire peoples, entire nations admire our power and our faith in our just cause, our willingness to defend our country, our creativity, our innovation that is so deeply embedded in us. And this is a major revolution. A tiny people who 3/4 of a century ago were merely ashes. From this tiny people, we have become a very significant power on the world stage. Where did this power come from? Its source is in the power of the spirit of our people that is expressed and demonstrated with great resourcefulness exhibited by the Holocaust survivors. Last week, we've learned about this, me and my wife, when we met with you, the torchlighters. The moving stories that all of you told us left us dumbfounded. For example, your story, Max Fivler, as an 11-year-old child, you were saved from death by your father, who defended you with his own body in the valley of death. You came out injured out of that pit, an only survivor. You saw the Nazi soldiers hanging your mother and tearing to pieces your baby brother. You vowed as a Jewish child to take revenge, to avenge their blood. You fled to the forests, and at the age of 14, you were recruited to the Red Army. Here's Max. Max is here with us. You stand upright, proud, adorned with medals. You have children, you have grandchildren, and you have great-grandchildren, all who served in the Israeli Defense Forces. Or your story, Moshe Porat, the Jewish child from Hungary. When you were an inmate in the Mauthausen camp, the Nazis tattooed the number on your arm, 10, 80, 80. And lo and behold, you told us that here in Israel, as a 17-year-old boy, you were so proud of the fact that you were conscripted to the army, to the Israeli Defense Force, that you took the flashlight when you were in the tent and you looked at your identity number, 10, 80, 80 was the number. This is a wondrous essence of the entire story of our national revival. The man is the same man. The number is the same number. But fate and destiny is far from being the same. We have transitioned from helplessness to power, from darkness to light, from death to life, from rock bottom to altitude, high altitudes, as the words of Ezekiel in the revelation of the dried bones. We have great vitality in us, great power and capability, a mighty spirit. Together, we have added one strength to another, and together we shall stand, God willing, all united and pass any test. Together we're going to defend our home, and together we shall secure the eternity of the people of Israel. My beloved daughter, Ruth, I'm writing this letter to you in the hope that our friends will manage to bring it to you one of these days. As long as we could, despite the terrible things that happen around us, we kept hoping that we would be able to hang in there till the end and get to see you once again. Changes in our lifestyle didn't matter that much to us. I always knew, even in such situations, how to see the bright side of things. Yesterday, many in our community were informed that they were to be on the next transport. Among them was your mother. One cannot protest against such things. Now it is me who, after serious deliberations, comes to the conclusion that we just don't have it in us, the physical and the emotional strength that can help us endure this life of torment and suffering. I believe that you will be able to understand and accept this. Do not let your life become bitter because of this. Do not think too much about the past. Think instead about the future, which will hopefully be better. And you didn't feel sorry for us either, for our life has been good. It's been a good life, thanks to the love that we had for one another and the love we had for you. Your very existence has given us the greatest happiness of all. If even now lies and deception prevail, do not be misled by them. Continue to be an honest friend, as you've always been, and look for friends, not necessarily among the smiling faces, but rather among those who maintain their integrity in all situations. And I would like to ask you once again, my beloved Ruth, do not allow your independent life, the life that starts now, right this minute, be influenced by ours that now ends. Remember us with love, not with bitterness. I already wrote to you once and said, my beloved girl, we must part. And now I'm saying goodbye, and I thank you for every laughter, every hug, and all the love that made my life so much more beautiful. Be a happy, fulfilled human being. This is your father's last wish. Your father who loves you so very dearly. This is the last letter sent by Gustav Jakobsen from Berlin to his daughter Ruth, who was smuggled to Sweden shortly before the death of his death and his wife's death. Ruth, their daughter, survived and immigrated to Israel in 1948. Ruth's children are here with us tonight. I've seen my path disappears in a thick forest among the woods. And in the bleeding soil, my feet stood and took root. And for a moment, I could hear leaves teaching their poetry, and I wanted to go higher up and to bloom along with them. I recognized the raindrops. I saw how they were pulling within me, and the cold wind, the desperate wind, froze me, was heavy on me. And for a fleeting moment, I could touch the edge of that gray pane, and I wanted to go up there to see the light, to see the light. They say that the sky is blue above us, full of light. Perhaps the day will come and I too will be able to see it all. And I fell to the earth quietly, closing my eyes, shutting my heart, and I felt how I was leaving all my pains behind, all my loneliness. And for a fleeting moment, I could escape as a feather on the wing of a bird. And I managed to soar way up there to see the light. And for a fleeting moment, I could escape as a feather on the wing of a bird. And I managed to soar up there to see the light, to see the light, to see the light. The torch lighting ceremony. The 6 torches would be lit in memory of the 6 millions, our brothers and sisters, who were murdered by the Nazi Germans and their accomplices, and in honor of the Holocaust survivors who reclaimed their lives and joined the efforts to build and establish the State of Israel and became pivotal partners in the commemoration of the Holocaust and bequeathing its memory to future generations. The torchlighters will be accompanied by their family members. The first torch will be lit by Moshe HaElyon of Thessaloniki, Greece. In Hebrew, please, to my sister Nina, who was taken by animals and thrown into the furnace when she reached the camp. We were a small family of 4. My father Eliyahu, my mother Rachel, and my sister Nina. The German invasion of Greece, April 1941. At the beginning of 1943, a committee arrived in Thessaloniki whose role was to annihilate the Jews. The Germans spread a rumor that the Jews would be taken to Poland, to the Krakow region. The journey lasted 6 days, until we reached a place that said Arbeit macht frei on the entrance to Auschwitz. The Germans yelled and hurled us up. It was so hard for us, Greeks. They spoke Yiddish to us. They said, "Are you at all Jews? What kind of Jews are you that you cannot speak Yiddish?" Once you uttered words, Shema Yisrael, they were sure that you were a Jew. One day, I was walking around the camp, and I came upon this friend from Greece, and he said, "I was brought here today from Birkenau." I said, "Oh, Birkenau. Did you see my mother, my sister?" And he explained to me that in Birkenau, there are gas chambers and crematorium. And on the first day, they killed them all. I looked at them and I said, "Are you crazy? Germans? Such a civilized nation murders people for no reason?" That night, I pulled the blanket over my head and wept. I could do nothing else. I always knew that I'd walk out of the camps. I knew that I'd get out alive of it. How did I know that? I don't know. On May 6, 1945, 3 American tanks entered. On one, there was a small Greek flag on the antenna. And after a large crowd gathered around, people burst into the Greek anthem. Hail, oh hail, liberty. I got married on February 2nd, 1947. I was a lieutenant general, and I was promoted to colonel when I was in reserve. My daughter was born in 1949 and my son in 1954. That is my yield. I have 6 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, and another on the way, so it seems. May the torch be lit. The second torch would be lit by Moshe Yakubowicz, Warsaw, Poland. I grew up in Warsaw. I was born there. My family was very religious. My father's name was Yaakov Aryeh. My mother's name was Hava, and I had 2 younger brothers. In Passover in 1943, we sat in the Seder table at home and we heard gunshots and we knew that the uprising had begun. We went down to the bunker and we stayed there for 7 days. The Germans knew about the bunkers. And then they started burning and destroying them. We had no choice. We had to come out, hands up in the air. My father, well, the Germans shot him. I stayed by my mother, and they took us to the Umschlagplatz. And there they loaded us into the cattle cars like sardines until we reached Majdanek. No one gets out of Majdanek alive. They came looking for workers. My mother pushed me forward, go to work. My mother, Hava, and my 2 brothers remained in Majdanek. I never said goodbye to her. When we reached the camp, they tattooed our arms. It says KL, which means concentration camp. That's what it is. We're half dead by then. They used to beat us up. Those who could not work, they would be shot. That's what I remember. Then we were transferred again to Dachau. The Germans started to flee. And then we encountered the Americans. They took care of me until I decided to immigrate to Eretz Israel. In April 1948, I arrived in Tel Aviv. We got a rifle and 5 bullets. We were happy to be alive and that we are able to fight for our country. I married Tzipora on June 15th, 1950. I have 3 children. My eldest is named Aryeh, after my father. My daughter is named Hava, after my mother. And my youngest is Doron David, after my younger brother. I have 8 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren. This is our revenge against Hitler. May the torch be lit. The 3rd torch will be lit by Janine Bohana Seban of the Seban House, Nemours, Algeria. I was born on September 9th, 1929 in Nemours, Algeria. I lived there until I was 9, when we moved to Paris, France. My father's name was Jaco, and my mother's name was Herman in French, but she was called Rahman. We had a hard life because we weren't rich. We didn't have a lot of money, and we were 6 children at home. Early one morning, someone came knocking very hard on our door. The noise all around us was terrifying. We were so scared. We didn't know what was going on. It was a long time ago, but it's as if it happened yesterday. All the Jews in the buildings were taken. 2 girls came to my mother. Madame Seban, we are staying here. As far as she was concerned, we had to hide the children. I went downstairs and took the girls in. I'd go down at midnight and bring them food until we found a way to move them to the free zone. Had anyone found out about them, we would all have been killed. My family, my mother, saved these girls. These are the letters thrown by the people and sent to my mother. I sent them to my mother. The saddest letter was from Jackie, an 11-year-old boy who wrote to my mother. Dear Seban family, we are in a very sad situation. Mother and other friends were sent to an unknown place. I'm still with my younger sister. I'm hugging you tight in the hope that we will meet soon, Jackie. I got married on August 21, 1946, in Nemours, Algeria. I immigrated to Israel with my husband in 1994. I have 5 children and 12 grandchildren and 17 great-grandchildren. May the torch be lit. The 4th torch will be lit by Moshe Porat, Hodananash, Hungary. Father set us on a bench, a pair of scissors in his hand, and he wept. And as he wept, he cut off our side cords, and I felt that it was not the same Moshe. We're marched 42 kilometers to a brick factory, a level plain, like cows grazing in the field. That's how we lay down and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, my uncle woke me up. Moshele, it's your bar mitzvah today. And he started dragging me among the dead bodies. We walked for a long time until we reached a hidden crook. 20 Jews were standing in a circle, holding the Torah. The Torah reader asked my uncle, "What's the name of this little one?" And he said, "Well, Moshe ben Yosef Levi, we are celebrating your bar mitzvah." And I was a boy, and I was very happy that I had my bar mitzvah celebrated. We traveled through Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland. 1 hour outside of Auschwitz, the partisans blew up the railroad tracks to prevent us from being brought there. Suddenly, the train started backing up. After 3.5 days, we reached Germany. 9.5 months of forced labor. At the end of the winter, we started the death camp. My mother and 4 children, we all supported one another. People died like flies. We got no food, no water, nothing. We reached Mauthausen. I'll never forget that day. Mother's strength was utterly depleted. It's as if she said, "I took care of my babies so far and I have no strength left." 40 years later, I went back with my sister and her husband for the first time to a route trip. We reached Mauthausen. My mother is here and I was here. I barely made it out. I stood there and I said that we have come from Israel, that we established a state, and that we got married, and that we have children and grandchildren. And I started reciting the Kaddish, and I collapsed. May the torch be lit. The 5th torch will be lit by Max Privler from Kolichin, the Ukraine. I was born in western Ukraine. My father, David Privler Hershkovitz, was a prominent merchant. When the war broke out, the Gestapo came and arrested him, and I grabbed him by the leg. The unit commander said, "Take this Yid away." We were told, "Go and walk naked to the killing pit." When they stood at the edge of the pit, my father pushed me in before they opened fire. He then fell, and his body covered me. When people screamed and tried to get out, the SS started shooting at us. In the morning, I started to move. I saw the sky. I crawled out of the pit. I was 11 years old. I was told that my mother was starving in the ghetto. I went to the ghetto. I saw my mother being manhandled with my brothers and sisters. A policeman grabbed 1-year-old brother from my mother's arms. She turned around abruptly and shoved the policeman so hard that he fell onto the sidewalk. and died there and then. Other policemen arrived, tore Brale out of my mother's arms, and took my mother to the headquarters. They suspended a rope from the second floor and hung her. I had only one thing on my mind: to kill and avenge. And that's what I did. After fighting in the ranks of the partisans, young Max Privler was conscripted to the Red Army. I became an undercover, and at the age of 14, I was appointed commander of the Children's Spy Unit. I took part in saving Krakow and liberating Auschwitz. I saw the gold teeth, the hair, the crematoria, the Jewish Muslims who couldn't move. My father said, "Son, if you survive, tell people the truth about what these animals did to people just because they were Jews." That's what I do this day. I am a wealthy man. I have 6 great-grandchildren and 5 grandchildren, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Maybe I can also contribute to our country. May the torch be lit.
המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
משואה שישית תעלה אלקה אברמוביץ'.
Elka Abramovich, Raines, Novoselica, Romania. I was born in Novoselica in Bessarabia. I remember my childhood. We're a very close family. We used to sing and play. My parents were traditional. My father Shimon and my mother Frida, Esther the eldest, Brel in the middle, and I was the little one. We weren't rich, but we wanted for nothing. One day the Romanians rounded up the town people and led us through mountains and valleys. There were many dead along the way from earlier marches. I was most affected by 2 children crying out, "Mother, Father, take us!" But they remained there forever. And I asked my mother, "If I have no more strength to walk, will you leave me too on the side of the road?" They marched us to Transnistria. We were divided into groups. There were pigsties and stables, and they crammed us, as many people as they could. We lay one next to another. The freezing cold was terrible. My mother contracted pneumonia. I lay one side of her and my brother on the other. When we woke up in the morning, my father said, "Mother has died." Father was a leather worker, and when they heard that he had this profession in the town, immediately they brought him work and they gave him a room, and I lay there for 11 months until I could stand up on my feet again. My father Shimon, he saved our lives. We wanted to live in Eretz Israel. We wanted to be in Israel. And we were overjoyed when we got here. In 1950s, we did a wedding together, my sister and me. Arya Abramovich, my husband, was very devoted. We raised a beautiful family with 3 children, 10 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, so there's a lot of pleasure that we take in it. And lighting a torch from my country, there's nothing. I couldn't be more excited than that. Don't make me cry. May the torch be lit. On behalf of the Holocaust survivors, we shall now hear Ms. Estelle Barone, born in János Haza, Hungary, who survived the Auschwitz concentration camp and Mauthausen labor camp. After the detention camp in Cyprus, she reached Israel in 1948 and today serves as the chairperson of the Hungarian Immigrant Association in Jerusalem and has been volunteering for many years in informing Holocaust survivors of their rights. In July 1944, when I arrived in Auschwitz-Birkenau to Lager C, there were some 30,000 Jewish women in it. At the end of October 1944, only 500 women remained who survived Mengele's selections. These were the ones who were fittest for work, and they were divided to 3 blocks. In one of those blocks, I was in, as well as my cousin, Etta. Earlier on, we were 3, my cousin and my youngest sister, Elvira. However, Mengele separated between us in the big selection on New Year's Eve of 1944 and sent her away from me and away from the world. The 2 of us, my cousin Etta and myself, were waiting to be sent to a labor camp. In a surprising way, before we were sent in the transport to the labor camp, they ordered all of us to enter another selection, to face yet again this pointed finger. A terrible chaos emerged. People were hysterical because of the catastrophe of those 2 familiar lines, the one for the weak and the one for the fit, those who would head for the right and those to the left, those to the gas chambers and those to the transport. I saw my cousin Etta in the left line of the weak, and I decided that I would not allow them to take her away from me. It took perhaps 10 seconds for me to leap toward her, to catch her garment, and to slowly pull her to the back, to the right line. And I had her stand in my place so that there would not be an empty place seen, and I hesitatedly sneaked to the last place in the line. Auschwitz, the kingdom of death, has its own rules. You had to belong to someone there. You had to be together. Togetherness was the strength of the one, of the individual. Togetherness gave meaning to life as well as to death. Togetherness meant that we cared about one another. We shared our daily slice of bread. We shared our sleeping bunk. We shared this side of the water faucet. And the most important thing is that we shared our strength and supported one another. The loss of my sister Elvira and her eyes, who were burning within me, strengthened my desire to maintain the only togetherness that I had with my cousin Etta. In the Mauthausen Lenzing labor camp, we were not designated for extermination, but rather for exploitation. They exploited our strength for the benefit of the war machine. We worked together and we created a tiny human cell against the mighty power of the superpower of evil, and that togetherness of ours allowed us to remain alive, to survive. All that we've been through together and supported one another. We remained alive. From rock bottom of hell, we rose back to the cycle of life. It took time before I recreated my world. The love of the land of Israel that was instilled in me in my childhood was lit up in me full force. I reconciled with the Creator who kept his face hidden from us on such dire days. And I have been privileged to be a part of those who built our country, the country of our ancestors in our homeland, with self-sacrifice and a volunteering spirit and great love, I tried to imbue new spirit into the reality of my life. Here in the land of Israel, my life received a new meaning that goes beyond the physical survival. This togetherness changed from a tiny cell of two young girls that fight against evil to a supportive and ever-widening cell of family, society, and country. Normal life. And now, as I approach the third trimester of my life, I see my survival as a great privilege that entails a major obligation. The obligation to work together to maintain a society of Jewish, humane, egalitarian values so that we will be able to pass on the torch that we were given by those who stayed there to our children, our grandchildren, and to future generations. I pray that we will be able to one day, when we join our loved ones up there, that we will be able to tell them that we have justified our survival. Gabor Erdos was an adolescent poet born in Budapest. After the German invasion of Hungary, Gabor hid with his mother, grandfather, and grandmother behind a wall in a shop in Budapest. 6 months later, Gabor, who could not stand the suffocation of that hideout, came out. Gabor and his mom were taken and brought to the shores of the Danube River, where they were murdered. He was 13 years old. In the hideout, dozens of poems that he wrote were found. And still I do not part. One more moment, and my book will be closed, and a book of another life will open. Other flames will be lit in it, as well as other passions. I shall part this way. I envy the one who will come after me. Other emotions will beat within him. Someone else will be the protagonist, the hero, and other strings will vibrate within him. I shall part this way. But a ray of hope still glitters within me, shines like the glowing rainbow. Still, not forever will I disappear from sight, if I too shall die and never return. For those who live through my pages, my soul will emerge from between the lines. In my poems do I dwell, and my soul will not stay rested in this soil when young people live through the pages of my book. So after all, I will not part. Gabor Erdos was the cousin of Marian Miller, born in Budapest, mother of the actor Adir Miller. When I die, something in me, something of me will die in you. will die in you. And when you die, something of you in me, something of you within me will die with you. Will die with you. Because all of us, yes, all of us are one living human fabric. And if one of us passes away from us, something dies within us, and something stays with him. If we know how to mitigate and how to calm the animosity, if we only know, if we only know how to quieten our rage, despite our insult, to say we're sorry, if we know how to start anew, because all of us, yes, all of us, we're all a part of one living human fabric. And if one of us passes away from us, something in us dies, and something remains with him. Verses from Psalms will be recited by the Chief Rabbi of Israel, Rabbi David Lau. The audience is requested to rise. Lord, how many are mine adversaries become? Many are they that rise up against me. Many there are that say, there is no salvation from in it is God. For lo, thine enemies are in an uproar, and they have hate thee, have lifted up their heads. They hold crafty converse against thy people, and take counsel against thy treasures. They said, come and let us out them, being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Return, O Lord, deliver my soul, save me for thy mercy's sake. Be gracious unto me, O Lord. Behold mine affliction at the hands of them that hate me. Thou that liftest me up from the gates of death. O how, Lord, wilt thou forget me forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart by day? How long shall mine enemy be exalted over me? Behold thou and answer me, O Lord my God. Lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Yet though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Kaddish will be recited by the Chief Rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Itzhak Yosef. Exalted and hallowed be his great name. throughout the world which he has created according to his will. May he establish his kingship, bring forth his redemption, and hasten the coming of his Messiah in your lifetime and in your days and in the lifetime of the entire house of Israel, speedily and soon. And say amen. Amen. May his great name be blessed forever to all eternity. May his great name be blessed forever and to all eternity. Blessed and praised, glorified, exalted, and extolled, honored, adored, and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he. Beyond all blessings, hymns, praises, and consolations that are uttered in the world, and say amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and a good life for us all. And say amen. He who makes peace in the heavens, may he bring peace for all of us. And say amen. God full of mercy would be recited by the cantor Lipa Glantz. God full of mercy, who dwells in the heights, the father of widows and orphans, provide a sure rest upon the divine presence's wings. Within the range of the holy and the pure, whose shining resembles the sky, that shine and glitter for all the souls of the 6 million Jews, brothers and sisters, the hundreds of thousands of the people of Israel, men, women, and babies, who were killed and murdered and slaughtered burnt and exterminated and buried alive by the German Nazi assassins, and who passed away for the sanctification of your name. Therefore, we shall pray for the elevation of their souls. Therefore, the Master of Mercy will protect them forever and hide them under his wings, and will tie their souls with the rope of life. The everlasting is their heritage. The Garden of Eden shall be their resting place. And they shall rest peacefully upon their lying place. And they will stand for their fate in the end of days, and let us say, Amen. Hatikva, the national anthem. This is the end of the ceremony. The audience is requested to remain seated until the President of the State of Israel, the Prime Minister, the Speaker of the Knesset, and the Deputy Chief Justice have left.
You've been in Israel for years. 8 years. Works in United.
Incorporated.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.